I've always hated being home alone. There's something about the way a familiar house can suddenly feel alien, how every creak of the floorboard sounds like a footstep. That day, this feeling was 10 times worse. My little sister, Sam, and I were both homesick from school, stuck in bed with matching fevers. Mom couldn't take the day off work, but she promised our stepdad, Steve, would come check on us later in the afternoon. She tucked us in, left a bottle of cough syrup on the nightstand, and with a final kiss, she was gone. For the first few hours, the house was just quiet. Too quiet. The only sounds were our occasional coughs and the low hum of the refrigerator. Sam had drifted off to sleep, her breathing soft and even. I was trying to read, but my head was too stuffy to focus. Around noon, a new sound cut through the silence. The distinct, unmistakable click of the front door opening. My heart leaped into my throat. Steve wasn't supposed to be here for hours. I grabbed my phone and shot a quick text to Mom. Is Steve here? The reply came back almost instantly. No, honey. He's still at work. Why? A cold dread washed over me. I crept out of my room and peeked down the hallway. The front door was slightly ajar, letting a sliver of daylight into the dim entryway. But there was no one there. Sam, I whispered, shaking her shoulder gently. Wake up. She stirred, groggy and confused. Someone's in the house, I mouthed, my voice trembling. Her eyes widened with the same terror I felt. That's when we heard it. A slow, heavy footstep on the hardwood floor of the living room above us. Then another. Someone was walking around, taking their time. It wasn't Mom and it wasn't Steve. We were not alone. My mind raced. The phone. Calling the police felt too risky. What if they heard me? My eyes darted around the room, landing on the basement door at the end of the hall. Come on, I whispered, pulling Sam out of bed. We also grabbed our golden retriever, Max, who had been sleeping at the foot of my bed. I held my finger to my lips, signaling for him to be quiet. He seemed to sense the fear in the air, staying close and silent. We tiptoed down the hallway, each creak of the floorboards under our feet sounding like a gunshot. The footsteps upstairs had stopped. Were they listening? Waiting? We slipped through the basement door and I carefully pulled it shut behind us, trying not to make a sound. The basement was our hideout. It was musty and filled with old furniture and boxes, a perfect maze to get lost in. We scrambled behind a stack of old moving boxes in the farthest, darkest corner, pulling Max down with us. I held my breath, straining to hear, and then the footsteps started again. But this time, they weren't upstairs. They were on the basement stairs. A slow, deliberate descent. Thump, thump, thump. Each step echoed in the cavernous space, getting closer and closer. Sam buried her face in my side, her small body shaking uncontrollably. I wrapped my arms around her, trying to shield her, my own heart pounding so hard. I thought it would burst. Max let out a low, almost inaudible growl. I clamped my hand gently over his muzzle. The footsteps reached the bottom of the stairs and stopped. Silence. Complete, suffocating silence. We could hear the person breathing, a ragged, heavy sound just a few yards away from our hiding spot. Minutes stretched into what felt like an eternity. We stayed frozen, two small statues hidden in the shadows, listening to the phantom in our house just exist. He didn't search. He didn't call out. He just stood there, waiting. I don't know how much time passed. 1 hour? 2? It felt like a lifetime. Suddenly, we heard a new sound from upstairs. The front door opening again, this time with force. Hello, girls. It was Steve's voice. A wave of relief so powerful it almost made me cry washed over me. Steve, I screamed, my voice hoarse. We're in the basement. He's down here. We heard Steve yelling something, then the sound of him running back upstairs. A moment later, chaos erupted. Heavy footsteps thundered down the stairs, this time belonging to Steve and 2 police officers. Police, show yourself, one of them shouted. We stayed hidden, too terrified to move. Lights flashed across the dark basement, cutting through the shadows. And then they found him. He was hiding just a few feet away from us. crouched behind another stack of boxes. They said he was a homeless man, a drifter who had likely seen my mom leave and thought the house was empty. They took him away, and the house was finally safe. But that night, and for many nights after, I couldn't sleep. The police said he was just looking for a place to hide from the cold, that he probably never even knew we were there until I screamed. But I can't shake the image of him standing there in the dark, listening. The thought that he was there in the silence, watching us, waiting ... That's a fear that stays with you. It's a reminder that sometimes the scariest monsters are the ones you never see. Thanks for listening to my story. If you have a story of your own, I'd love to hear it in the comments. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more content. Stay safe out there. Last Friday night was supposed to be just another boring evening at home. My parents had gone out, leaving me with Emma, my babysitter from just down the street. She's super cool, and we usually just chill and watch movies. Everything was totally normal until about 9 p.m. That's when we heard a loud, insistent knock on the front door. We both looked at each other, a little confused. Who could that be so late? Emma went to the peephole, and I followed, peering over her shoulder. Two men stood on the porch, holding a couple of pizza boxes. One of them had a red cap pulled down low, and the other just stared blankly at the door. "Tony's Pizza," one of them shouted through the door. I looked at Emma, and she looked back at me. A knot of unease started to form in my stomach. We hadn't ordered any pizza. My parents never order from Tony's, and we had already eaten dinner hours ago. Emma, sensing my fear, put a calming hand on my shoulder and whispered, "Stay back." She didn't open the door. Instead, she called out in a steady voice, "Sorry, I think you have the wrong house." We didn't order anything. The man with the cap laughed, a short, unpleasant sound. "Yeah, you did. It's a large pepperoni and a cheese. Paid for online. Just open up." His insistence sent a chill down my spine. This wasn't right. Emma was amazing, though. She didn't panic. Instead, she pulled out her phone and said loudly, "Okay, 1 second. Let me just call Tony's Pizza to confirm the order number. I have them on my favorites." Of course, she wasn't really calling the pizza place. I saw her finger hovering over the contacts for my dad. It was a bluff, but a brilliant one. The men on the other side of the door must have heard her because their tone changed instantly. The friendly delivery guy act vanished. "Hey, what are you doing? Just open the door." The second man yelled, his voice rough and angry. Now, real panic set in. They started banging on the door, not just knocking anymore. It was loud, aggressive, and terrifying. The whole door frame was shaking. The man with the cap was shouting now, telling us to let them in, his words slurring with rage. I was frozen, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. But Emma, she stood her ground. Her voice was shaking, but she yelled back, "I'm calling 911 right now. The police are on their way." It was another bluff, but it was the one that worked. The banging stopped abruptly. We heard muffled cursing, the sound of feet scrambling down the porch steps, and then the screech of tires as a car sped away into the night. We stood there in complete silence for what felt like an eternity, just listening to our own ragged breaths. The silence was almost as scary as the noise had been. Finally, Emma sank back against the wall, her face pale. She finally did call the police for real and my parents. The officers arrived quickly. They checked the area, and they confirmed what we already suspected. No pizza order had ever been placed to our address from Tony's or anywhere else. They told us Emma's quick thinking likely prevented a home invasion. That night, she saved me. I'll never forget her voice, trembling but trying to be brave for me, as she hugged me and said, "It's okay, they're gone." We were both safe, but we both knew deep down just how differently that night could have ended. It's a chilling reminder to always trust your gut. Thank you so much for listening to my story. It's a bit of a heavy one, but I felt it was important to share. If you found this valuable, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel for more content. Stay safe out there, everyone. Living in a downtown loft is usually a dream. The high ceilings, the exposed brick, the city lights painting the walls. It's a vibe. I'd always felt so safe and comfortable here. Until that one night. The night my apartment decided to play a trick on me. It was just after midnight. I was fast asleep, probably dreaming about something mundane like forgetting to buy coffee, when a sound jolted me awake. It was a whisper. Faint, but undeniably there, coming from my living room. I held my breath, straining to hear. Was I imagining it? Then it started. A violin. Not a beautiful, soothing melody, but a haunting, screeching sound that scraped at the edges of my nerves. It was the kind of music you hear in horror movies right before something terrible happens. My heart went into overdrive. It was pounding so hard I could feel it in my ears, almost drowning out the terrifying sounds from the other room. Someone was in my apartment. That was the only logical explanation. I checked my phone 12:15 a.m. Who would break in at this hour and decide to play creepy violin music? My mind was racing, trying to make sense of the situation, but all it could land on was pure, unadulterated fear. I've lived alone for years and never felt this vulnerable. Slowly, I slid out of bed, my feet landing silently on the cold floor. The whispering was getting clearer now, a mix of hushed, unintelligible voices, weaving in and out of the violin's mournful cry. I didn't even think about grabbing a weapon or calling the police. My only instinct was to hide. The closet was my only option. I crept inside, pulling the door almost shut, leaving just a tiny crack to peek through. I sank to the floor, wrapping my arms around my knees, trying to make myself as small as possible. I was shaking so badly my teeth were chattering. From my hiding spot, I could see a sliver of my living room. The moonlight streamed through the big loft windows, casting long, distorted shadows that looked like lurking figures. The music grew louder and louder, more intense. It wasn't just in the room anymore. It felt like it was echoing inside my head, a private concert from hell. I squeezed my eyes shut, praying for it to stop. Please, just make it stop. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, silence. Complete, total silence. The sudden absence of noise was almost as jarring as the sounds themselves. I stayed put, frozen in the closet, for what felt like an eternity. Every creak of the old building, every distant siren, sent a fresh wave of panic through me. Was the intruder still there? Were they waiting for me to come out? After what must have been 20 minutes of sitting in utter terror, I finally mustered the courage to move. My legs were stiff and numb. I pushed the closet door open and peered into the living room. Nothing. The shadows were just shadows. The room was empty. I tiptoed to the front door, my hand trembling as I reached for the lock. It was still bolted from the inside, exactly as I had left it. I stood there in the middle of my living room, completely baffled and still terrified. My mind couldn't reconcile the locked door with the voices and music I'd heard so clearly. Was I going crazy? Was the apartment haunted? Just as I was about to dissolve into a full-blown panic attack, a sharp knock on my door made me jump out of my skin. I cautiously looked through the peephole. It was my neighbor, Mark, from across the hall. He looked exhausted and a little sheepish. I unbolted the door, my heart still hammering. "Mark, what's up?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. He held up his phone with a guilty expression. "Hey, super weird question," he started. "But were you hearing anything strange? Like violin music and spooky whispers?" I just stared at him, speechless. He continued, "I'm so sorry. I've been editing sound for a horror film project all night, and I think my new wireless speakers somehow auto-connected to your Bluetooth system instead of mine. The signal must have crossed. I just realized it when my audio cut out." The relief that washed over me was so immense, I felt my knees go weak. I leaned against the doorframe and just started laughing. It wasn't a happy laugh. It was the hysterical, on the verge of tears kind of laugh. All that terror, all that fear. For nothing. It wasn't a ghost or a home invader. It was just technology. That night taught me a valuable lesson. Sometimes the scariest monsters aren't hiding under your bed. They're hiding in your Wi-Fi signal. And maybe I should probably change my Bluetooth password. Thanks for listening to my near-death by Bluetooth experience. If you've ever had a tech mishap turn terrifying, drop it in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories. Stay safe out there.